In this video, we're going to look at the NASDAQ 100 or the Invesco QQQ Trust, and starting to see more headlines and chatter about a possible bubble or a potential big decline coming, because the QQQ is up 55% over the last year and up 78% since this low in 2022. So we're just going to look at a little bit of history and see whether this is kind of bubble territory or if we're likely to see a big decline. First, a little context. I think a lot of investors, a 10% decline, not a huge deal. 15% getting bigger, but 20% declines are generally 20% declines or bigger are what investors would prefer to sidestep if they had a bit of foresight. And so this chart here shows basically all the price moves greater than 20% going back to 2009 or 2008. And what we see is that we typically have really big rallies before a 20% decline develops. Off of that 2008 low, we rallied 388%, and then that was followed by a 26% decline. After that low, we rallied 128% into a 23% decline. Then we had a rather brief rally due to COVID. The price rallied 67% and then fell 30% over the COVID pandemic fears. And then after that rallied 149%. Then we had this bigger drop, and so far we've rallied 78%. So when we look at these rallies here, we find that the average, where did I have the averages written down here? 183% is the average rally following a low, and the median rally, which is more kind of the middle number, is 139%. So other than this one that was kind of stifled due to COVID, we typically see really big rallies following these 20% plus declines. So even if this were to rally quite a bit more, we would just be nearing what is normal. So seeing more of these kind of 100+% rallies. So if we think of it in that perspective, so even if we kind of looked at the median rally of about 139% off this low, that would be taking us up into, that about 135% right there. That's like 590. If we were a little bit more conservative, we could say maybe 575 on the QQQ. So what would 575 be? That'd be about 125, 130% rally. And from current levels up to that 575-ish, I believe it was about 30% area. So we could still go 30% higher, and that would just get us to kind of the normal rallies that we tend to see before a significant decline. So that's just something to keep in mind here, is that we are actually not in a atypical or extreme circumstance. We actually see big moves like this in QQQ quite often. Another thing we can look at is that the price just eclipsed late last year, 2023, just eclipsed this 2021 high. So you can see we're just a little bit above it, about 11% above that high. What we often see when the price does eclipse these highs is that it tends to have a pretty big run following moving to a new high before it has a 20% decline. So this one, approximately, just eyeballing it here, moved about 70% higher before it had a 20% decline. That's 70% above the prior high. Even during this COVID one, it moved about 26% higher before falling. And this one here, after COVID, a very quick 70% to the upside before it had a bigger decline. So based on those two things, moving to a new high is generally quite bullish over the next while. And then we also see that, yeah, these rallies are quite big in QQQ following these bigger declines. So both of those indicate that this still has some room to run potentially. This is a relatively brief look at history, so we have no way of knowing, of course, that history will repeat and that we will get one of these big rallies. But it's already started. It's already underway. So having some of these statistics in mind can maybe help us stay with the trend as opposed to getting too fearful of a big decline. And of course, anything could happen. We could start dropping soon, so you'd want to control your stop loss and position size as always.